Hi everyone, I'm Andres Monty, co-founder of Range, and today we are going to talk about sovereignty and security, and also how app-specific rollups can be the answer to the security problem in crypto. So I have a couple of questions before I start talking, and yeah, here for you, which is who in the room thinks that Ethereum would fork if the staking deposit contract would get wiped out and all the ETH was stolen? Like, raise your hands if you think would have another DAO fork, contentious fork. Okay, who thinks it wouldn't? Okay, maybe we have like 75% that we would fork. Who thinks here that if Lido, all the TVL of Lido, all the ETH, which I'm not sure if it's between 10 and 20% of the ETH supply, got hacked? Who thinks here we would fork as with the DAO fork? No one. Okay, that's interesting. So then, like, if all the TVL of MakerDAO got hacked, nobody here thinks that we would fork, right? Okay, that's interesting. We'll come back to these questions later. But yeah, like, let's start kind of stepping back and understanding what's the level of security in crypto. We are doing not fine. In 2022, more than $3 billion were affected. Some of these were recouped, but definitely, like, we are not doing fine. This is a huge number, and I always try to make analogies with kind of more real-world numbers. So this is, I think, almost 20%, like $3 billion, almost 20% of the annual defense budget of my home country in the European Union. So we are talking about very, very big numbers, right? And I think everyone in this room agrees that security is important. I would go even farther. I would say that, I mean, I'm biased, but I think that is the key unsolved problem in crypto for mainstream adoption. It's great that we are working on solving scalability. It's great that some people are looking for product market fit, but security, like, nothing of that matters if we don't solve security. A good example is Axie Infinity. Axie Infinity, like, was the product that kind of crossed the chasm, right? Like, it was more like mainstream adopted, like very adopted in Philippines. But then at some point, like, the running bridge was hacked for more than $500 million. And, you know, all the users, all the mainstream users that were using, like, Axie probably are not coming back because they got wrecked, right? And so I would like to ask you here if we are ready to build, like, secure modular blockchains, and if we are ready for thousands of rollups or tens of thousands of rollups kind of talking to each other. Yeah, I come from the security background, so I have, like, you know, we have certainly some challenges, what I call modular nightmares. So, like, modularity implies that there is more external dependency. So we have like a sort of like a supply chain risk for the counterparties that we are kind of integrating our modular stack. We're also, like, using cutting-edge tech, right? Like rollups, zero knowledge. Like, this is, like, super cool technology, but it's mostly not battle tested in production yet. And then as well, you know, like, this world of many, many rollups and blockchains implies that we are, like, bridges are not going anywhere, and cross-chain is not going anywhere. And bridges are complex, bridges are hard. So, I mean, we should understand as well that not all bridges are created equal. And I think, like, as a community, and in particular, this sector of the crypto community has done a lot of progress moving from centralized to trust minimized and trustless bridges. So this is great. But the reality is that most exploits that we've seen, and we've seen in 2022 more than $2.5 billion, were actually due to implementation flaws. So in this infographic, you can see, well, the yellow bars correspond to, like, poor designs. So this means, like, for example, the case of Ronin and Harmony, yes, key compromise on multi-sig bridges, but all the green bars are actually implementation flaws. So the point here is, doesn't matter how sound and robust your bridge protocol is, doesn't matter if you are using, like, a trustless bridge, trust minimized, like IBC, or even like a canonical bridge between Ethereum main chain and an L2, there can always be an implementation flaw. So I think as a community, and I think this happens already in Web 2, we need to internalize this statement. There will be always yet another software bug, so we kind of need to work on controlling the blast radius of these incidents. And particularly when we talk about bridges and rollups that are very complex software projects, which, like complexity means a larger attack surface and a more error-prone type of code bases. But not everything is dark. I think modularity is kind of bringing a new paradigm with all these challenges that I've been talking about, but also a lot of opportunities. And I think the opportunities definitely outweigh the challenges. And I genuinely believe that app-specific sovereign rollups might be the only possible way actually to build truly secure blockchains. And this is not talking about 5 years, 10 years from now, right? The future is now. Projects like Celestia are going to enable very soon that there will be thousands or tens of thousands of rollups, sovereign app-specific rollups talking to each other, and that every application is going to have its own rollup. And also kind of aligned with this beautiful vision of community computers where all the stakeholders are aligned. So in this world, sovereignty rules. And for this, I always like to use this analogy of seeing blockchains as countries and seeing bridges as sort of international treaties or international relationships between these countries or blockchains. We are going to talk about these three things in this context, so blockchain jurisdictions, borders and trade control, and separation of powers. Who knows about the BSC hack here? So this is a very interesting exploit. It was almost the biggest exploit in the history of crypto. I think it was around $500 million hacked. But the most interesting thing about this is that the Binance validators, let's say, the Binance validators were able to pause the chain and hold the chain very quick to control the blast radius. So the hacker was only able to get only, in quotes, $100 million out of the chain. So was able to breach out $100 million, but all the $400 million that remain within the blockchain jurisdiction, which is the BSC chain, were able to be recouped and recovered. So this is a very, very interesting example. There is this another one, which is, this is not security related, but it's also a proof of the power of social consensus. So the blockchain community decided to confiscate tokens from a whale address that had received more than the community thought was okay in an airdrop that was flawlessly designed. And then this was through community governance, and they actually confiscated the funds. And of course, the DAO fork, which I would say is top 3 in terms of importance of events in the history of crypto. This happened a long time ago, 7 years, which in crypto years is almost 50 years ago. But it's also a kind of the importance of social consensus. So also regarding the DAO, I would also like to question ourselves, how would this happen if Ethereum back then was connected with different bridges? So if the DAO hacker was able to breach out part of the ETH, or if there were stable coins that were already in this primitive Ethereum chain, right? So with these 3 examples, what we see is the importance of social consensus and blockchain jurisdictions, but also that the power of these jurisdictions starts and ends in the bridge. And this is specifically clear in the case of the Binance hack. And this, the importance of the bridge bring us to this part. Some of these things are going to be a bit controversial, but yeah, I think it's worth it to explore them. So the importance of the border in blockchain context and trade control. So I would say, let's build a wall, or at least let's explore if we should build a wall. Of course, this is not a political statement, but I think that we should explore how, breaching works. Right now, breaching is binary, right? It's either we connect to a chain or we don't. I think this is very primitive, and we should explore ways to parameterize this, to make this more granular, with mechanisms like rate limits, transaction delays, like the wormhole governor has implemented, and as well with transaction screening and blocking. I'm not talking about theory here. There are many applications, Cosmos chains, that already do this type of blocking with blacklists. There is thousands of DeFi applications that do this as well, but this is not explicit, and that's why you need to pause the change and hold the chain, because you don't have this type of mechanisms in place. I would also like to talk about IBC rate limits. I think this is a super powerful primitive. What I think is that it's the first governance configurable rate limited standard. This is in production for bridging fungible tokens over IBC. And this is super important because it doesn't only cover you if IBC implementation is actually exploited, but it also protects you as a community, as a chain, or as a rollup if the source chain is exploited. So in the case of Binance, if we had rate limits in place, this attacker wouldn't have been able to get $100 million, but maybe $5 or $10 million, and also like the Binance validator set wouldn't have needed to pause and hold the chain. And also more importantly, it also protects if the destination chain is exploited. So like it gives community, like sovereign rollups and blockchains as well, sovereignty over how much you trust your counterparties. So there might be the case that you want to bridge with a new fancy blockchain, but you don't really trust their technology yet or their economic security. So the rate limits enable you to parameterize this and kind of position yourself in this trade-off space between security and liquidity. And this is just the present. I think IBC rate limits in the future are going to be like very different, much more complex and much more dynamic and powerful. For example, extending beyond fungible token transfers, but also like being able to dynamically adjust to events that happen on-chain. So something that would be very cool is that if rate limits could be integrated with on-chain events like upgrades. So if a chain upgrades, you can define like a small rate limit because upgrades are normally error-prone. And then as you get more confidence on the new version, you can gradually increase the rate limit. And then the last one is separation of powers. I think this really encapsulates very well like the power of modularity, the ability that you can kind of specialize every layer of the stack and build like customized mechanisms. In our case, build customized security mechanisms across all the layers of the stack. Something that I think can be super cool. I know that other teams are working on this, which are modular mempools. This is something, it's a concept that we've seen already in the wild. Cosmos chains like Terra define like mempools that have prioritization for different transactions. So for example, Oracle transactions are going to be always at the beginning of the block. And I think like this can be super powerful in the modular context, a modular paradigm, because we can really customize this combined like with app-specific sovereign rollups and really make this super powerful combining with security mechanisms, customized for the given application. This is the case, for example, for circuit breakers. So we could see a future where circuit breakers are totally adapted to like the app-specific rollup functionality and also have more priority in the mempool. So then we can make sure that all security-related transactions get put at the beginning of every block. And this is really like the future we are building at Range. So we are providing the tools for blockchains, for sovereign rollups in both the Cosmos and Celestia ecosystem to express their sovereignty and also the security. And how are we doing this? So we are integrating off-chain monitoring systems and on-chain mitigation techniques like rate limits, circuit breakers, and more. And also we put a lot of focus on bridges. As we discussed in the call, we see bridges as the border, and this we should put a lot of security in the border, right? So we are building security mechanisms, security middleware around trustless bridges like IBC. And yeah, like as a little surprise, we have integrated Mocha in Rage's testnet. So yeah, from tomorrow, from the second day of the Modular Summit, you'll be able to tinker with and start monitoring addresses, transactions, and messages in Mocha from the Range community app. And yeah, that's all. Join us at range.org. I'm Monty on Twitter, and I'm always super down to discuss all these topics. Some of them are controversial, some of them are less controversial, but I'm always super down to discuss this in Twitter and also in the conference. I think that we have a bit of time for Q&A. So if you guys have any question or if you would like to, like come back to any of the slides, also happy to do that. Thank you. So we have 5 minutes. So if does anyone have a question?
No questions.
What's your answer on whether it would be forked right now or not?
Yeah, that's a good one. yeah, I definitely believe like if the staking deposit contract is hacked and all the ETH is wiped out, we definitely fork. I think that if Lido gets hacked and all the ETH gets wiped out, I think we would probably fork. Like I think like the room, only like 25% of you said that, or almost no one. I think it would. It's a meaningful percentage of the supply of ETH. There is a lot of, yeah, quite important stakeholders as well. So yeah, I think like there is like a more than 50% chance that it would. With Maker, I don't think it would. And that's, if I were MakerDAO, an application like that, and kind of tying back with the rest of the talk, you know, you have a TVL of, I don't know what MakerDAO has in TVL, but maybe like $10 billion. I'm not sure exactly. But I should ask myself as a community that I have like a TVL of $10 billion, but then I don't have the ability and the power with social consensus to be able to do this type of decisions, right? So you are handling a lot of money, but you don't even have like the power like to decide these type of things. And that's why, you know, app-specific sovereign rollups are so important and so like powerful in the future for security, because each application, imagine like this MakerDAO app-specific sovereign rollup would be definitely like able to decide like a fork if all the, you know, like ETH or all their TVL were, you know, affected in the hack. So that's kind of like really the connection, and why like teams like MakerDAO and others should definitely like consider launching a sovereign rollup with Celestia. Yeah.
All more questions?
Yeah.
All good.
Perfect.
All right. Thank you, Andres. Give him one more hand.